Welcome, Jack Complex, open daily, herbal and traditional pharmacy, alternative medicine products for all various ailments. Visit our vegetarian cafeteria, affordable meals made to order, burgers, hot dogs, soup, sandwiches, etc. Location 25 Dajrak Street, Triumph East Coast Demerara, behind the Regional 4 RDC. Telephone 626-5877 or 220-4386. Remember, you are what you eat.
They making new laws every day, and those of the master they throw away. The things they go about and preach, it's not what they teach, and no one seems to care. The whole world lives in fear, just despair everywhere.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna kullu Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. In the name of the Creator of our universe and the Creator of us, in the name of the Almighty God, most gracious and most merciful. All praise is due to the Almighty God, the beneficent and the merciful. We give praise and thanks to God, and we greet you, my brothers and sisters, with the greetings of peace. Those of you who are here and those of you who have invited us into your homes, may Almighty God continue to bless you for the support that we get from you. To my Christian brothers and sisters, peace be unto you. To my Hindu brothers and sisters, namaste. To my Rastafarian brothers and sisters, Jah peace and Jah love. And to my Muslim brothers and sisters and all other denominations, I greet you with the greetings of peace in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, we are now in the process of celebrating emancipation. You know, there is something that our colonial masters, all this has to do with our colonial masters, you know, the enslavement of the people of African descent, the tragedy of our people. All these are things that have been done to us by our colonial masters. And it is our colonial masters who have taught us that we shouldn't dwell on the past. We should only think about the future. Brothers and sisters, the future, none of us are in a position to know what is the future. And when they tell us, don't dwell upon the past, how can you forget the past? How can we forget the past? Why is it necessary to forget the past? Regardless of what happens to you in your life and how tragic it is and how bad it might be for you, it is a reminder for us to be able to deal with the present and to deal with whatever future is in front of us. So when we speak about emancipation, it's a reminder of what has happened. And we need to be reminded because a lot of our people. And today, I want to speak specifically about the African slaves and the African people and the descendants of the African people, because that's what this emancipation is about. And it is not anything that we should really celebrate, because those Africans who died and who were mutilated, manipulated, chastised, they went through that so that we could be here. We see the 1763 monument of coffee, and we also see the monument of Damon in Essequibo, and we realize and understand what our foreparents went through in order for them to be able, or in order for us to be here. It is because of them we are here. And so when we speak about emancipation, usually it is based on the emancipation of the slaves, that the slaves were able to be freed, right? But brothers and sisters, the question is, are we really emancipated? I look at my emancipation in the context of progress, in the context of what has the slaves or the descendants of the slaves done in order to make their foreparents who and their ancestors who suffered for them to be proud of them. That is what it is as far as I am concerned. One of the first things that we see of emancipation is the fact that the slaves were able to put their coins together and buy villages in this country. The whole aspect and concept and practice of emancipation is different in the different countries. In the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago, in Barbados, it's different. But we're speaking about Guyana. One of the things that they were able to do was purchase their own villages. That's an act of emancipation. And one of the identical and identifiable acts is not just the buying of the villages, it's the putting their resources together in order to purchase these villages. There wasn't this argument of who's going to steal or who's going to steal from who. They were able to pool their resources together, and that is an act of emancipation, an act that African people and the descendants of the African people in this country are up to today not even able to fulfill anymore. Putting their resources together. They bought these villages, they were able to acquire the transport and the title of these villages, even though there were more than 100 people who pooled their resources. And out of these people, they decided, well, okay, the title or the transport, as it may be, can only be written in the name of 3 or 4 people or 2 people. And they decided from among all of themselves, they decided which 2 or which 3 or which 4 would go on the transport with the names on the transport from the families. Today, that is a very difficult thing among the people of African descent, to pool their resources together in order to purchase or to start a business or whatever the case may be. The situation as it is today, brothers and sisters, is sad. When we look after so many 100 years of so-called emancipation, of the abolishment or the abolition of slavery, after so many years, we look and we try to see from the past, how is it here in the present? We look at the progress of the people of African descent in this country, and we wonder how emancipated the people of African descent are. What have they really achieved? We have had African leaders in this country, brothers and sisters. And when we look at the whole concept and philosophy of the emancipation that we are speaking about, how come the people of African descent are in such a position today that we can even visualize that in the next few years we might even end up having a Guyanese-born Venezuelan as the president of Guyana, or a Brazilian-born Guyanese as the president of this country, or maybe a Chinese-born Guyanese that would become the president of this country. That is how the situation reveals itself. When we go to our main city in Georgetown, brothers and sisters, and we look around at the businesses in Georgetown, you know, we can count on one hand the amount of people of African descent that have got business after so many 100 years of emancipation, as they call it. You see, we keep looking at this emancipated thing and linking it with the slaves, or linking it with slavery. First, to begin with, brothers and sisters, when you're a slave, nobody can give you freedom unless you take it. That is why we had to have a coffee. That is why we had to have a dayman. Nobody gave us any slavery. When they talk about the abolition of slavery, slavery has up to today in this country is not yet abolished. And in many countries on the African continent and other countries where we have an amount of people whose foreparents and whose ancestors were slaves. Haiti, for example. When we look at these places, and let's look at Guyana, and we will see the situation that faces us. We had nothing more to do but to set up in Buxton and call ourselves Buxtonians. Set up ourselves in BV Triumph and call ourselves Baronians. Huh? Where is this emancipation, brothers and sisters? How are you a Buxtonian? What am I? You are a Buxtonian, and I'm a descendant of people of African descent, of my African foreparents, my ancestors. You are also a descendant of the slaves that were enslaved here by the colonial masters, and you now have gained some kind of emancipation with a common E, and you're telling me you're a Buxtonian. What am I? You're telling me you're a Baronian. What am I? How come I am not included? You see what I mean, brothers and sisters? You say you're emancipated. You call yourself an Anglican. You call yourself a Catholic. You call yourself a Pentecostalist. You call yourself a Muslim as an African. You call yourself an Adventist. And you say you're emancipated? Is that an act of emancipation? You discriminate among yourselves. For even though you are an African Catholic, and there are Africans in the Anglican church, you are not going to go to that church because you're a Catholic and you're emancipated. You are an Adventist. You are a Pentecostalist. There are black Africans in the Pentecostal church. There are black Africans in the Adventist church. There are black Africans in the Baptist church, but they don't visit each other. They don't agree with each other. But they are emancipated. You see, brothers and sisters, how can we be emancipated as a people who were enslaved when we have taken this direction of segregating ourselves among ourselves? Our foreparents, our ancestors were thousands of times more emancipated than we can ever be at this time. Our ancestors were able to sit and assess their situation, pool their resources together, and build villages in which we live today. And we are privileged to have land and house and own lands and own houses and so on in these villages because of the struggle that they went through. You know, many of our African descendants from the slaves, they went into mining. Many of them went in what we call pork knockers. A pork knocker is really an African man, you know. Pork knocker ain't got nothing to do with no other man but the African man. The African man was the pork knocker. After slavery, he went into the bush, diamonds and gold and so on. And today, brothers and sisters, who are the people who own the dredges, who own most of the big fantastic equipment? Who are the people that are mining and bringing out most of the gold, most of the diamonds? Who are the people? Not those who claim to be emancipated. You see? Rice. Who are the people that own rice farms? Who are the people that own vehicles to transport the rice? Who are the people who are controlling the rice industry? Not the emancipated Africans. Where are they? Sugar. Who are the people who is in control of sugar? Brothers and sisters, when we celebrate emancipation, we must understand what we are talking about. Because it is important that when you claim to be emancipated, it is important that that type of emancipation that I'm speaking about should be handed down to your children. Our children should inherit our emancipation. What are our children inheriting? What is the inheritance of the people of African descent for what their ancestors died and were punished for? I said that we have a lot of African leaders in this country. And you know, it is so sad that throughout the history of this country and the African leadership, I have never heard the African leaders tell the Africans the relationship of the slave master and the Amerindians to the Africans. No one of them have ever spoken about it. And so today we are having a very conflicting situation. When we hear about slavery, we hear about the white man and the black man. We hear about the white man and the African. We hear about the European and the African. We do not hear anything about the Amerindian. What did the Amerindian play? What was the role that the Amerindian played in the concept and the philosophy and the practice of slavery? And we have had African leaders, the African, the truth about his situation during the times of slavery and the relationship of the Amerindians to the Africans. I'm going to tell you again, I keep telling you all the time, and I'm going to tell it to you all the time until you understand, because it is the truth. The colonial masters, which is the white man, the Caucasian man, used the Amerindians against the slaves. The Caucasian took it upon himself, first the missionaries, to indoctrinate them to becoming good Christians, and after that he placed the Amerindians in a superior position. The Amerindians were used to capture the slaves who ran away from the ill treatment of slavery. That was their job. Apart from fishing and hunting and so on, their job where they earned quite a lot, because it was paid. 200 guilders were paid to the Amerindians for every slave that they captured, dead or alive. And if that did not happen, if they didn't get them alive, they were told to bring back the hand or the foot of a slave. And they were paid 200 guilders for that hand and for that foot. Now, we have had African leaders in this country who are supposed, or who were supposed to be emancipated. And they never spoke about that. In fact, what they tried to do, most of them, the African leaders, was to win the support of the Amerindians. How can you win the support of the Amerindians when their ancestors were used, and when they were taught that they are more worthy than the slaves that they used to catch? You see, brothers and sisters, we need the truth. That's all we need. All we need is the truth. It is not the slave master that is going to set us free, but it's the truth that will set us free. And a lot of us don't like to hear the truth, but that's the truth. You can look around, check your history, and you're going to find there was an African leader in this country who is married to an Amerindian, and he took all his time to win the confidence of the Amerindian people so that he would receive their support and their votes. Now, if I'm married to one of your people, am I not a person that you should consider voting for? Am I not a person that you should give this support? Because my wife is one of you. No, he didn't get the support. You know why? Because he is this descendant of an African slave. That's why he didn't get the support. He spent millions of dollars to win the support of the Amerindian people. But he didn't get it because he's black. You see, brothers and sisters, it might be something you don't agree with me with. You don't have to agree with me. I am not here to tell you these things because I want you to agree with me. You see, I am here to tell you these things because they are the truth. They are the truth. Throughout the politics of this country, it's always, regardless of what kind of leadership we have, what kind of ethnic group is leading, it's always this idea that they have to win the support of the Amerindians in order to win the election. Nonsense! Total nonsense. That's what you feel. That's what you believe. You know, brothers and sisters, if the Amerindians are true to themselves, you know, the Tushao Council, the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs, the Association of Amerindians, they would enlighten their people, this generation, as to the role that their ancestors played in the act of slavery. They would do that. But they don't do that. You know? But then what happens? Slavery is abolished, and the same people who have been seeking and killing and bringing back to the slave master and catching the slaves, these people were given land all over this country, especially in the Essequibo region. Land that is laden with gold and diamonds. What did the slaves, the so-called emancipated slaves, get? How much land did the Africans get as the Amerindians got? The Amerindians have been given land all over. There are certain places you cannot even touch because it has been given to the Amerindians, who were considered the indigenous people of this country. What was the legacy? What is the legacy from slavery that the Africans have got to pass on to their fellow African brothers and sisters? What is their legacy? They were killed, they were murdered, our girls were raped, our boys were sodomized. All kinds of things happened to the African slaves. And the Amerindians were on the side of the slave master. The Amerindians helped to do all those things. And that after slavery was abolished, the legacy left for the Amerindians was land with gold and diamonds. You see, like a time like this, brothers and sisters, where we are celebrating emancipation, what happened to AGDA, the African Development or Cultural Development Association? Don't you know that, AGDA? Don't you know the role that the Amerindians played? And don't you think that at a time like this, it is important that the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs, the Amerindian Association, and the Tushao Council should offer an apology? Don't you think that the Amerindian organizations should offer an apology to the people of African descent, to the descendants of the slaves, for what their ancestors did? Don't you think? No, but you don't want that. You want to go and ask the British for reparation. You want to ask this other set of people for reparation. You're looking for money from them. We were not given, our people were not given anything, not a piece of land with nothing. But these Amerindians, who they used against us, were showered with gold and diamonds and land. And up to today, no apology. No apology. And I am saying that's one of the things that we need to consider during the time of emancipation celebrations. We should demand an apology from the Amerindian organizations for the treatment and the inhuman treatment to our African people in conjunction with themselves and the slave master, because that's what they did. They ill-treated and mistreated and maltreated and manipulated the people of African descent in conjunction with the slave master. I am not blaming the present day Amerindians. For many of you who are listening to me, you don't know about what I'm saying. You haven't been taught. They have hidden it. The African leaders of this country have hidden it. They hid it. They didn't tell the Africans. They didn't tell them. They hid it. So our young African brothers and sisters don't know anything about that. Our young Amerindian brothers and sisters don't know anything about that because it was hidden from them. And therefore, it is an important part of the development of this country to clear the air, for it is unfair for the legacy that was left for the Amerindians in comparison to the legacy that was left for the Africans. The Africans received no legacy, and the Amerindians received a bundle of legacies that they still have up to today. You can't go on any land like that that's owned by Amerindians. You have to have permission from them. Where is the land that the Africans were given, that their foreparents suffered for? And where are the African leaders who have enlightened, or who should have enlightened? I am surprised that certain black leaders of this country, I don't want to call any names, that did not enlighten the Africans about their plight and their situation in conjunction with the Amerindians and the way they were used against each other. So brothers and sisters, when we speak about emancipation, you know, that's the kind of thing I'm speaking about. You can only be emancipated if you are enlightened in terms of your ancestral and your foreparents. That's the only way. And when we look at our present day, well, first to begin with, brothers and sisters, there were no legacy. So we received emancipation, what they're calling emancipation, from the slave master, with nothing. And that's why I find that our ancestors, as an African people, our ancestors were 1,000,000 times more emancipated than these who call themselves African descendants of Africa. Our foreparents and our ancestors were 1,000,000 times more emancipated than we would ever.
Welcome, Jack Complex, open daily herbal and traditional pharmacy. Alternative medicine products for all various ailments. Visit our vegetarian cafeteria, affordable meals made to order. Burgers, hot dogs, soup, sandwiches, etc. Location, 25 Dazrak Street, Triumph East Coast, Demerara, behind the Regional 4 RDC. Telephone 626-5877 or 220-4386. Remember, you are what you eat.
Man create his own monster, weapons of damnation and disaster. No sign at all of human rights. Today has turned into night. Is racialism so, and segregation so? Which way is left to go? I don't know. Love thy neighbor. Tell me, what about he ain't heavy, he's my brother. Nobody cares a damn anymore. All they got on their mind is war.
Welcome, Back Jack Complex, open daily, herbal and traditional pharmacy. Alternative medicine products for all various ailments. Visit our vegetarian cafeteria, affordable meals made to order. Burgers, hot dogs, soup, sandwiches, etc. Location 25 Dazrak Street, Triumph East Coast Demerara, behind the Regional 4 RDC. Telephone 626-5877 or 220-4386. Remember, you are what you eat.
Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Remember, I asked brothers and sisters, go to the markets today and see how many people of African descent are selling, for example, cash crops. You see them selling coconut water though, huh? Because they coconut cash crops. Go around and see how many people of African descent are owners of rice farms. Go around and see how many African people are owners of land, massive land, apart from some of them who were involved with others in some type of corrupt facilities. Look at the East Coast. We are on the East Coast. Look at what the Chinese did. You can call the Chinese an emancipated people. Those are emancipated people. You can call the Indo-Guyanese, the Indians of this country, you can call them emancipated people. You can call all other ethnic groups in this country emancipated, except the Africans. You don't like what I'm saying? Sorry. You don't have to, you know. You don't have to like what I'm saying. You know who likes what I'm saying? Me. I like what I'm saying because it's the truth. Where is the emancipation of the African people? What did Kofi die for? What did they imagine? Where the parliament buildings are, that's where Damon was hanged. That's where they hung him. They tried Damon, the leader of the slave rebellion in Essequibo. They tried him and hung him right where the parliament buildings are. And there are Africans and African leaders who have stood up in that parliament buildings and have not spoken the truth and have not told you the truth about your African ancestors and what has happened to them. Shame, shame, shame on you so-called Negroes. But you know, brothers and sisters, there are young brothers, young Africans. Like I told you, my sermon today is based on the relationship of the people of African descent and their ancestors who were enslaved. You know, and it is important for. Go on the East Bank and tell me how many businesses do you see that are owned and operated by people of African descent? Go on the West Coast and tell me how many people. The Chinese have come here and have, you know, brothers and sisters, what is so sad is that we are supposed to be emancipated as a people of African descent, but we have turned out to be the consumers. We are emancipated in terms of being the most prominent and, you know, people who consume what the emancipated people sell. Chinese have come here, look at it. Look at it. I was on the street yesterday. There are 5 Chinese supermarkets. And you want to tell me that the emancipation of the African people could not allow them to open a few supermarkets on their own? No, no. That's why I said, don't be surprised if in the next few years there is a Guyanese Chinese that becomes the president of this country due to the emancipation of his parents and his ancestors that have come here. Venezuelans have come into this country and they have business. You could imagine that people who are supposed to be refugees, you know what is the status of a refugee? The status of a refugee is that when you come into my country, you ain't got nothing, you're bad. But not these refugees that are coming here. The refugees that are coming here are opening business, big businesses. And where are the so-called emancipated Africans? They're buying from the Chinese. They're buying from the Venezuelans. They're buying from the Brazilians. People who have come here because of poverty, they claim, in their own countries, because of political unrest or whatever the case may be. And these people are here, and they have taken over the emancipated positions that the African people should have had years ago because of the struggle that the Africans had to go through in order for the colonial masters to say, well, okay, it's time. The white man only says it's okay, you can have emancipation because he's afraid that he would die. The Africans were vicious. Our ancestors were vicious people who decided that it's better they die than continue to live in that type of slave position and slave mentality. Today, brothers and sisters, we, the people of African descent, are actually in the same position that our ancestors were after the abolition of slavery. Sure, the police force, a lot of people of African descent, the GDF, the soldiers, a lot of people of African descent. That is where we emancipated ourselves to be. Police, soldiers, civil servants. You see, brothers and sisters, most of the ethnic groups in this country have emancipated themselves to be rice farmers, cane farmers. You know, At one time, when there was a political problem here in this country, where the two political leaders were conflicting, the one was in power, the African leader, and the other leader, you know what he did? He sent his people, he was so emancipated that he sent his people away to study electronics. During the time that the people of African descent were working for Bookers and Fogartys and these places, he sent his people away. He got scholarships for his people to study technology. Show me in Georgetown only one business with electronics that is owned by a descendant of the Africans. One, just show me one. Where you can go and get stereo sets, where you can go and get CDs and cell phones, and show me one established big business. Brothers and sisters, I don't want to take up your time any longer. I can't, because I don't have the time. But I'm telling you, as you celebrate in the park tomorrow, those of you who have heard this program, you think about it. Think about it and understand. Go into the prison. Go to Brick Diamond Camp Street and see among the ethnic groups how many of them are in prison. Check it. And you're going to see that the majority of people are from the emancipated Africans in prison. You know, it is so sad that we wonder, and I wonder to myself when I see them campaigning and they want political power. I have seen it. I have seen Africans, like I said, in political power as African leaders. What you want the power to do, man? What you want the power to do? You've had power. You African leaders who had power. You've had power. And where are the people? You know, one of the reasons, brothers and sisters, is that we are not able as a people of African descent to follow in the footsteps of our emancipated African descendants by pooling our resources together in order to achieve betterment for ourselves and our generation. But then again, when we compare to the Amerindians, we have no legacy. The Amerindians today have got a large legacy. You don't see no hungry Amerindians. Have you ever walked down the street, man? Walk down Regent Street and Robb Street and Water Street and see how many Amerindians you see begging. You see one or two Indo-Guyanese, but the majority of people are the emancipated Africans. Go down and see. You know, sometimes we as an organization, we feed people. We cook and we take our food in the evenings to Georgetown, and we go on the pavements where people are sleeping and so on, and we share food. I can't remember in the last 3 or 4 years sharing any food to Amerindians. Their legacy is there. And it is important that our people at this time of emancipation understand that it's a dire situation and that it's now time for us to think about leaving a proper legacy for the generation to come. See, we want our children to be doctors and lawyers. Doctors and lawyers. That's what the people of African descent wants their children to be. Lawyers who lie and doctors who cheat. You know? Our other brothers and sisters, our other ethnic groups, they want their children to farm. They want their children to establish businesses. And you know, all the businesses in this country, believe it or not, as I close, do you know that the businesses in this country are thriving because of the consumers who are the people of African descent? I even go further to say that the businesses today are thriving because of the consumers who are emancipated. I leave it there, brothers and sisters, because the truth is the truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, practical experience is the greatest teacher. Memory is the greatest truth. And ingratitude, ungratefulness, is the greatest sin. Remember that.
Breaking down is a whole big runaround. A lot of talk is what goes on, while the world is left to mourn. Starvation taking toll, weapons out of control. The atmosphere is cold, oh, so cold. Oh Lord, tell me, what about love thy neighbor? Tell me, what about he ain't heavy, he's my brother. Nobody cares a damn anymore. All they got on their mind is war, war. Tell me, what about equal rights and justice? Tell me, what about peace and happiness? Da, 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 hey. Da, 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 da. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They making new laws every day, and those of the master they throw away.
Welcome, Jack Complex, open daily, herbal and traditional pharmacy. Alternative medicine products for all various ailments. Visit our vegetarian cafeteria, affordable meals made to order. Burgers, hot dogs, soup, sandwiches, etc. Location, 25 Dazrak Street, Triumph East Coast, Demerara, behind the Regional 4 RDC. Telephone 626-5877 or 220-4386. Remember, you are what you eat.